Well, thanks for coming and chatting with me today.
Dude, of course. Thanks for having me, man. This is sick.
How's everything going? What have you been working on lately?
A bunch of stuff. So I'm about to start working on, I got hired to play on this score for this TV show.
Oh, nice.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say which one it is, but it's like this cool, like, video game adaptation. So I'm excited about starting that. I just finished doing bass for the Ever Forthright record, which is, have you ever heard of Ever Forthright? Yeah. They're like, yeah. So yeah, they're old. They're not old, but you know, they've been around for a minute. Yeah, I've just been doing a lot of session work. Actually today, Aaron sent me the first like demos for some new music. So I'm gonna start working on some new interval stuff too. But yeah, that's pretty much it, man.
All right. When was the last intervals? Was that last year? Right?
The last record came out of November 2020.
Okay. So probably about time for another one then.
Yeah, we did a little touring cycle, and now we're off for I think we're off until I think I want to say spring maybe.
Okay.
But we got something in the hopper that's going to be really cool.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know if I've caught intervals ever when they've come through here, when you guys come through.
Oh, no?
Next time you can make it over here, I'll make sure I go.
Yeah, for sure.
Who were you touring with last? Like on this little tour?
So the last tour we did, it was only like a 3-day thing. It was all makeup shows because like we did our headliner for that record. Where is it? There it is. And we only had to cancel one show, and it was our hometown show at the end of the tour. Yeah, it was just, regulations went back up. Okay. The crazy regulations went back up in Canada, so we had to cancel our Toronto show. So this tour, this last tour we did was just like a 3-show thing where we just did like London, Ottawa, and Toronto. And it was with us, this really cool band called, what are they called? I completely forgot their name. Wow, I'm blanking on their name. Yeah. But it's so this guy, it's James LeBray, his son's band.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're really, really cool. They're like, this like kind of like modern metal type. Yeah, they're really, really, really great band. I dig them a lot. I completely forgot their name. And then we did Mandroid EcoStar open for us, which was really, really, really cool. Yeah.
Nice. So when you get like...
Oh, they're called The Fall Set.
The Fall Set. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out because, I was a Dream Theater fanboy back in the day.
Yeah.
As I think a lot of us probably were in this scene. But
yeah.
So when you get session work like this movie or this TV show thing, are you recording it all yourself usually?
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I what I'll normally do is I'll just get the track. And I have my own little recording setup right here. And what I'll normally do for clients is I'll either send them just the raw DI if that's what they just want, or I'll send them the DI and then I'll send them like a demo tone because a lot of people who hire me want that sound, like the parallax kind of thing. Yeah. So I'll send them like a reference tone, or I'll send them the preset, and then that'll be that. But yeah, I feel like especially in this like niche genre, where fortunately there's work, which is awesome, but you got to be able to, track it yourself and, do everything DIY if you want to benefit from it, really.
Do you do that with intervals? Is that with intervals as well? Do you do it yourself?
So with intervals, for intervals, it's Aaron. Well, that's like not really session work. That's
different. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. But, this for Circadian, I tracked every song, like just did demo versions of it because I wasn't able to go into Canada because of COVID regulations.
That makes sense.
So the Sam Guyana, the engineer and the guy who mixed it was just a bit concerned, not because he didn't, he was just like, oh man, like there's one guy who's not going to be recording with us. Like I'm kind of nervous about that. So I just sent him my demos and stuff like that, and he saw the DIs and how I edited everything together, and he was like, okay, this is fine. So I actually ended up going to my friend Sam Harchick, who's in the band called Aviations, and we tracked all the bass together. But yeah, realistically, if I had to, I could just do everything from here.
Yeah. I think it's so different now than it used to be. You don't have to like drag everyone to a studio and pay a bunch of money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really like getting high. Like when somebody, can actually wants to go into the studio with them and like work with me on bass lines. It's really fun. I love collaborating like that. But, on a track like yours, it's just, you send it over, I start it, finish it, by lunch, I'm all good, but
I mean, it's nice for someone like me too, because then, it's like, I'm on the other side of the country. What are we supposed to do? It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Like, fly someone over for one single,
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's what we do for intervals. But a majority of the stuff that I do, it's just right here.
Yeah. And it is really nice. You can lessen the cost of doing, especially if you're doing your own music, you have to like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have this project called Gia that is coming out in sometime 2023, and the whole record was written over quarantine, and all of us, including the drums. So Nathan Bulla from Intervals played drums on it, and he did everything. He lives in like a really old house, and he converted what used to be like, I think his grandmother's basement into like a full drum room. Nice. And he like drilled holes in the floor and put overheads in the room above. Yeah, no, dude, it sounds amazing. It sounds so sick. So yeah, all of us did everything from our bedrooms or basements or whatever. It was all done, like that.
Yeah, drums are the one tricky thing for sure. Obviously it's nice to have the option of having decent sounding program drum these days, but if you can find a drummer who has his own setup, like that's ideal. But
yeah, Nate is very much a jack of all trades in terms of, he's not just a drummer. Like he's very much knowledgeable in terms of like making the drums sound good. He could sets everything up himself, can give you like a nice decent drum mix if you want, because like when we did I like made the demo mixes and I have no idea how to actually mix drums. Yeah. So Nathan just sent me a little, some track of everything together, and it sounded great for the demo purposes. So yeah, he's super, super talented dude.
Yeah. Mixing's a whole nother, a level that, I mean, I've spent the last couple of years kind of, spending some time on it because I thought it was worth it
for sure,
for doing your own, for making your own things, but it's its own, full-time job kind of thing.
Yeah, I can imagine. I need to dedicate more time to getting better at that stuff and not just being able to make bass sound really good.
Hey, I mean, but that works, right?
It's fun.
Now, if you make your own demos, do you ship that out to get mixed, or you just kind of like?
Yeah. So this EP this project Gia is doing, Simon Grove is mixing it.
Oh well, there you go. It's gonna sound great.
Yeah. He sent me what he sent me so far sounds absurd. Yeah. He's incredible.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah,
and he's also got his own bass plugin, just like you. So.
Yeah, exactly. We're both just, our bass tones will be here long after we are.
So I've been using Umansky Bass on like demos.
Yeah, that's how I like discovered like your stuff, as you were like one of the main guys that was using it, and it was really, really cool to see.
Well, I have a bass, and so
I see that
as much as often as I can, and I feel like doing it, I'll record real bass because it just it sounds better. But sometimes it's a demo and you get, you're lazy or whatever. And it's like, I'm just going to throw this on Instagram. Like, I don't care.
Right.
Just use virtual bass. And I've been using a couple other ones, but I saw Umansky Bass and I've used some other submission audio stuff. So I picked it up and I was like, yeah, this is good. Like, I haven't heard a virtual bass that sounds as good. Like, yeah,
dude, thank you. I appreciate that. We put in like 100 hours into that thing. It was a lot of work.
And it's the sound of it overall, but also the flexibility of it and all the different articulations you can do. It's crazy. Like, because I can't thump on bass,
right.
So like anytime if I wrote something that has that in it, it's like, what am I supposed to do? So, but I can go in there and it takes a long time, but you can program each, thumb hitter.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's like when we initially did when we were talking about the UI and all the features and stuff like that, we were very much like, okay, what are we going to do to separate this from, what Submission has done and what any other, sample library has done before. And I was very adamant about including the thumping thing. And they were just like, well, isn't that just like slapping?
You're like, no.
And I was like, no, that thumping is like, there's a completely different sound. It's more muted. So what I asked them to do is like, if we could do this like thump sound, which is like the mute, you do a little bit of a mute with your left hand, and then you do the upstroke or the downstroke, which is like a traditional slap thing. And then you do the upstroke, and then you do an index and middle pop.
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay, cool. We need to see if that we can fit all that. And once I got the green light, and we almost didn't even do it. Like we were tracking everything, and we got everything done like a day ahead of schedule. So we spent another day just doing all the thump articulations, and it's like the main thing that people use it for now. It's like one of the main, perks of the plugin. And, I have like Animals as leaders using it on like 5 songs in their set
awesome.
now. And, yeah, just seeing, guys like you, when you sent me your demo, I was like, hey, that's super sick. And, yeah, it's really cool. But, yeah, we put a lot of time into that.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love things that are flexible like that, because it's like, if I'm going to use virtual instruments, which you kind of have to at some point, it's like, I want to at least be able to do the things that I'm hearing in my head and have them come out somewhat realistic sounding.
Right. Exactly.
And like, I totally understand the physical, how you thump, I just can't really do it myself, but like I understand, like, yeah, sure. Okay, these are the patterns or whatever. So if I can do that, I can go in and get it kind of.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just gonna turn my iPad keeps like making like weird noises. Give me one sec.
Those are notifications.
Yeah, I turned my volume off, and it kept going. So now I'm just throwing it over there.
Yeah, I know. On my song, I did I do this thing where they call like fake thumping, where it's basically just hybrid picking.
Yeah. Like, I kind of heard that, and yeah, it was very. And what you did on the bass section was really, really cool too. I kind of did a hybrid of what I ended up doing, like a hybrid of what you ended up programming, and then just like actually doing some real thumping stuff.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering what was different between like how I'd written it and what you would actually do.
What you did was mainly just like lots and lots of dead notes.
Yeah.
So like tick, like, and it was all just like dead notes. Whereas what I did was kind of just I more or less just doubled what you were doing on the guitar, but did it with actual notes rather than just dead notes. Because I found that the Animals as Leaders guys did that too. A lot of their, a lot of the bass stuff that they do, like for thumping sections, it's not even like real. It's not even like there's no note there. It's just like either like a timbre,
it's like a sound, basically,
or a sound, And that's what like they came to me. Especially their front of house guy, they were just like, hey, we need something better than what we have going on now. So yeah, that's kind of what I did. It's just more of just, I did what you did, but instead of just that, timbre, that like thumpy sound, I actually put some note behind it.
Okay. So are you then actually like pushing and fretting the note, and then, or is it like partly muted?
Pushing it for no. So I'm completely. So what I do,
it is muted, but you're over a certain note.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll fret the note, and then with my middle finger I mute the string a little bit, and then you do the full on thump thing. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I do usually, at least when I notate it and stuff, I will notate a specific note, to be muted. Whether or not that actually sounds, I don't know, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely figuring out how to get that to sound convincing, especially in a sample library, was difficult, and getting it to translate. And the biggest thing is like velocity. Yeah. Because like you want the accents to come out. Like you have that in your section. I'm trying to like scat. It's like or I can't even do that really fast. But yeah, getting those to come out and getting it to translate well, especially in like a programmed library, is really difficult. But yeah, those sections were hard, dude. Holy shit.
Yeah. Well, no, I definitely recorded it in parts, at least on my end, for the one faster one.
Okay.
It's one of those weird. I'm trying to describe how the rhythm works. I've heard it called shifting gravity centers one time. So basically, it's like you have a certain numbers and you just increase each one by a certain amount, but you leave it within the same amount of space, and so you end up with something that's faster. But
interesting.
It's real nerdy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I really like the track because it's like one of those, you know, it's a progressive metal tune, but it's not like one of these songs where you just keep introducing new information and more new information, and there's nothing for the listener to grasp onto. And I say that so many times, and when people ask me about like what my favorite, or like why, like what I think is like the definition of like a good progressive metal song, it's just like, you know, you introduce a certain amount of information, and then what follows is just different things that are pulled from that. It's so I thought that was really cool, because like you have that first initial thumping section, and then you kind of go off and do a more crazier variation of it, and then you go back to your chorus, and then you finish it off on the crazy thumping thing. So it's really cool. And then you go back and introduce that little descending line up. So yeah, thematically and like structurally, it's a really cool song. So I
appreciate it. That's something I think about a lot when writing prog, and like in a lot of the lessons I do, I talk about this. It's like people think of prog as just being like a bunch of ideas stitched together continuously with no direction.
Yeah, I hate that.
And sometimes in certain sections that can be cool for, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But overall, at least for myself, it's like if I want to introduce some sort of motifs, rhythm, melodic, whatever it is, and then I can develop those smaller ideas into bigger things, you know, throughout the song.
Right.
So,
right. Yeah, it's definitely like the thing that I think the only band that I'm very much like, okay, do whatever you want and I will love it unconditionally is probably like Between the Buried and Me.
Oh yeah.
Where, you know, because they're very, very good at one, thematic development. They're, you know, everything happens for a reason, but they're also very good at that like tongue in cheek, you know, like proggy for the sake of being proggy kind of thing. And like, it's weird because I used to be like a diehard BT band fan, like, you know, kind of, yeah, they were my favorite, and they still are one of my favorite bands. But you know, I don't listen to them as much as I used to, but yeah, they just used to be, they're just such a huge part of me developing my sound, one as a bass player, but just also introducing me into the proggy stuff. But yeah, now I more like to listen to stuff that's more I'm trying to think of a good word. Like, yeah, like more structurally, I don't know. I think there's a time and a place for all that, for all the crazy proggy stuff. And I think Between the Buried and Me is absolutely the band that does it better than anybody else. But yeah, like structure wise and like thematic, like, or what's a good way to put it? Like thematically, you know, there's a certain amount of information that I like to introduce into a song, and then everything else is just pulled from there. And the same thing goes for like writing bass lines too. Like if I'm presented with a song like yours, for example, like yours, you know, you have a chorus that I think repeats once or twice, and then it happens one more time at the end. Yeah. So the first two times they're pretty much like chill. I just play the roots and, you know, don't do anything fancy. And on that last one, I'm like, okay, cool. This is like the finale. So I'll add some kind of cool fill or outline a chord that I didn't do before, just to kind of say like, hey, it's the last time this is happening. Like, you know, this is all we got. So yeah, I definitely follow that kind of rule when it comes to not just writing songs, but like writing bass parts too.
Yeah. No, and that was like one of my favorite parts that you do is the very end. There's that one ascending sort of like melodic run.
Yeah, just outline chords.
Yeah, and that's why I'd recommend people you can, if you have the resources, to hire a professional to do the parts.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. It could sound like me, but, or, you know, it could sound like the guy that you're going to hire, but you're not going to write like that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
Granted, like, I barely changed anything you wrote though.
Yeah, no. I mean, I feel comfortable writing bass parts overall, but there are like little things like that I might not do. Because I'm not thinking like a bass player when I'm making a full song. I'm thinking about kind of the song as a whole, you know.
Yeah.
But when you get an individual, like I've had that with drummers too. If I hire drummers to play songs, it's like I'll give them freedom here or there to do whatever they want. But the grooves are pretty solid. But then they'll come in and do something cool, you know. And I was like, well, I would never have thought of that. And it can add a lot to. And I kind of miss being in a band like that where you kind of feed off of each other.
Yeah.
So.
I find that it's hard to be with like progressive metal stuff. I find that it's, I don't know. You very rarely, I mean, just from my experience, you don't really have a lot of bands that go into a room and write stuff together. You know, it's usually everyone writes their things on a laptop, and then it makes its rounds through Dropbox, and then everyone just adds their own stuff.
Yeah.
And I definitely missed that because like I was in bands in college where I would, you know, it was not as complex stuff, and we would just sit down and in a room and write together. And I guess the equivalent of that now is, you know, opening up a Zoom session and having everybody have the Pro Tools thing open, or someone have their Pro Tools session open, and, you know, everyone's just kind of like throwing their ideas at one person, and then we're trying to execute as good as well as we can, which is really fun too. But yeah, there's something about just writing in a room with with people that you know, you can't really get that anywhere else. But like I was saying, like with the progressive metal stuff, it's just like, it's like if you write something, it's like, hey, how about this? What about this? And then you write this crazy riff, and the next person who has to, it's like, okay, cool, yeah, I can definitely play that, but I need a week to figure it out.
In fact, I actually write most of my music into a notation software first.
Yeah, sure.
Weird. That's why I had like the sheet music for you to send to you. I don't know if you even looked at that, but
nope.
Which is fine. Everyone learns differently, but
yeah, right.
I was like, I had it. I was like, I might as well send it just in case.
Honestly, respect. That is really useful. But so that's what happens to me is like, I'll write something, I'll kind of try it out or whatever, and be like, okay, yeah, I can play that. But then I'll finish writing it, and it's like, I'll just have to figure out how to actually do it once it's time to record, you know? Sure.
Which is kind of weird. Be like, I'm humanly capable of doing this, just not yet.
Yeah.
Give me some time.
I got, yeah, that's definitely it. So I got into the notation. Oh yeah, sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
No, I just got into the notation stuff super late. So everything I write, I would just write either on guitar or bass, and then I would just splice everything together. I never bothered like, you know, getting good at Guitar Pro until a couple of years ago. So I'm very late to that game. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah, I had a traditional music school education, you know, doing classical.
Yeah, so we're using like Sibelius.
Yeah,
like
I did Sibelius for a long time, and then Guitar Pro. Actually, I have a classical guitar degree, so like I can sight read and do, you know, all that kind of stuff too. So it's just kind of how I feel comfortable. But I always tell people, it's like whatever works for you to like get the stuff out. It's like if you have to read the music, great. If you can do it by ear, that's probably even better. But
yeah, I mean, look, like having the ability to read music is extremely useful, even in mists. Like, and I can read, like, I again, music degree too, but I definitely, you know, in my line of work, like sight reading and all that stuff that comes with that is not really, you know, they'll send you something, and Aaron will send me something like when I join intervals, and he's like, hey, here's the song, learn the bass part. And I did my methods, which is masonry. I have a pretty good ear, so I learned everything by ear, made some stuff my own, and that was really it. And another thing I did was just like look at videos of other people playing the music on YouTube. Looked at videos of Simon when he was touring with him, and then that was it. But you know, having that ability to, you know, let's say Nathan will say like, hey, this comes in on the end of 3 or something like that, and you have no idea what that means. You know, then you're, you know, that's a problem. So having that ability to kind of like, you know, speak that language is super important.
Yeah. Well, at least there needs to be some sort of common language especially if you're playing with people live. It's like, you gotta make sure you're hitting this part right and all of that.
Exactly.
I found that, at least for me, the way of writing into notation software, it's not something a lot of people do, I don't think, in this style of music. But I've been able to like come up with rhythms and stuff that I almost like I couldn't probably even hear what they'd sound like unless I was able to notate it and play it back.
Sure.
Like if it's really complicated stuff, because sometimes things are just too complex and you can't even reproduce them right away. So you need to hear them back first before to know if it'll even work. But it's cool. It's I don't know, whatever. As I said, it works for me. So, so if you're learning a song, it's for mine, for instance, how long does it take you to kind of figure out all the parts and then record?
I'll kind of do it like simultaneously. I'll usually spend, if you send me the song one day, I'll usually won't start it for a while. Like I'll take a couple days to just listen to it, unless it's like a very like, hey, I need this by tomorrow, then that's fine.
Yeah.
But I'll usually take a day or two to just, I'll listen to it at the gym. I'll just, when doing grocery shopping, I'll just listen to it, get familiar with the structure. And that way, when I'm actually learning the parts and writing my parts, I can, find out, where to build certain things and where to add certain things. And then I'll just sit down. I'll learn a section at a time. Like I learn the first intro, tracked it, learn the chorus, then tracked it right after. And like if there's something crazy like the thumping section, right, I'll learn that like one day. I'll get it under my fingers. If I'm cool with it, which is, it can happen, then I'll just track it that day. And if not, I'll get it under my fingers a little bit more. And if I can't get it all in one take or something like that, I'll just punch in certain things. There's definitely stuff I punched in during that.
Oh yeah, it's fine. And I did it too.
But
I did some copy pasting in there too.
Yeah, exactly. And I have absolutely zero ego about that. It's just all about, if I would need to splice something in for the sake of the fact that it needs to get done in a certain amount of time and I have other things I got to do. If I can get it to sound great and I could just punch something in, it's fine. But yeah, so I'll usually just take a couple of days to learn a song or to get it in my ear, know the structure, and then I'll sit down and I'll start learning the parts. And if it's something that isn't too tricky, like a majority of the song, besides that thump section, I was able to just bang out really quickly. I'll just learn it, track it, and then once I have those sections tracked, I'll kind of comb over it and I'll listen to. I'll kind of just dive deeper into other layers, like some synth stuff and guitar lead stuff, to see if I could find any cool unison lines or anything where I could do some cool like contrapuntal based stuff. And yeah, once I'm done combing over it, it's pretty much just I'll send it over to you, and then if you have any other questions, comments, thoughts, revisions, then that's it. But yeah, it's a pretty laid back process. I've worked with a couple of people where they're very, very specific, and I had this one guy actually who sent me, like, I sent him a track and I crushed it. Like I did a great job. And then he's like, yeah, that sounds great. But like, can you just play? And he would send me a video of him doing this. He was like, it was like a selfie of him like this, right? And he'd be like, hey, can you do this? I'm like, they're like literally like there's no pitch.
Yeah.
He's just like scatting out. And I did what I thought he wanted, and luckily that was it. But there were definitely moments where he would send me another video and he'd be like, no, not like banana. It would be like banana. I'm like, okay, cool.
That's
dude.
very specific.
Yeah. But again, music is a language. You gotta understand it. No, but yeah, usually it's a pretty relaxed process, like the whole revision thing, if I need to do revisions for people. But
yeah. I say, if you're going to hire someone to play, like, first of all, you probably should want their sound at least a little bit, but also you need to be specific about what you want in general. Like,
no, if you want revisions, like, that's cool. But like, if you have a specific fill in mind, and granted, like, this dude didn't know a lot of theory, didn't know a lot. So the fact that he scattered it, and like, because I don't think a lot of like people would have because it looked silly. But I kind of knew what he was going for, and I sent him something back and he was like, fine with it. But so I do give him credit because he had like this vision of what he wanted and he wasn't going to settle. So that's kind of cool. But I do appreciate if someone would, if like, hey, can you play a fill like this? And like, if you don't have a bass, just play it on guitar and then I'll, do something close to that. But yeah, it's.
How often do you get stuff from like metal guitarists, especially who don't play bass, which is like either almost impossible to play on bass or just like insanely hard because it's doubled?
It happens, but a lot of the time what I'll do is I'll normally take I'll just call it, do you listen to the Faceless?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I'll usually take the Faceless approach, which is their bass player Brandon back in the day. I just know this because like I had to learn their whole discography when I played with them for like 8 weeks. But so a lot of what he did was like, if there was a guitar player, if there was a crazy guitar line, like a crazy riff, he wouldn't always double the guitar. He would do some unison lines and then just outline the chord progression. And that made everything sound so much bigger and so much cooler. And because it's like you have this dope riff and then you have, something going on, really cool going on under it that isn't so obviously just the guitar being doubled by the bass. So that's usually what my approach will be. I'll usually, take the riff and I will learn it, but I'll learn it really slow just to kind of see what's going on. And then I'll learn the progression that the riff is outlining. And then I'll kind of try to write something that's weaving in and out of that. So you can get, and again, there's unfortunately moments and riffs where I have to double exactly what the guitar is doing. And that's fine. Yeah. It just takes,
it's an extra challenge, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we have this song called Vanta Black, which is literally the most impossible thing to play on bass, but we did it. It's all good. Yeah. But yeah, my go-to thing for stuff like that, is to write more stuff that outlines the guitar. Not because I can't play it, but just because I think that sounds cooler. I think it fills in the space and serves the purpose as the bass a bit more. Like I just did, there's a lot of that on, you know who Dan Sugarman is?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. So I just played on Dan's next record and there was a lot of just crazy shred riffs. And I I do this. It's technically you're dumbing it down when you're writing bass stuff like this because you're not doubling the guitar. You're playing less notes but the general reaction for when I do that is like, whoa, this sounds so sick. Like, what are you doing over there? I'm like, cool. I'm just doing less, man.
I'm playing half as many notes as you are.
I'm being a bass player.
Yeah. That's great because I'm always been a big fan of bass being its own instrument. It's like so often in metal, it's like bass doubles guitar and that's it. Or people think like that anyway.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's so many cool. Like I think like the first time I saw that was like Pantera, where Rex Brown, because it's just him and Dime, so he has to, when Dime takes a solo, like he's got to fill in that space, or like when there's like they're playing a riff and there's like a little crazy lead in that riff, he won't duplicate that lead. He'll keep going with the progression. He'll do like these really cool like walking lines. Yeah. And that's something that I love. Same thing with like if you listen to Necrophagus, The Faceless, Between the Buried and Me, a lot of those bass lines, they're just crazy walking bass lines. And I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Cause I mean, it is possible, right, for the bass to play really crazy shred runs, but honestly, if you do that, like it seems cool in theory, but a lot of times you end up losing a lot of that like low end. You lose a lot of the sort of
like I saw I'm really big fan of the new Lorna Shore record, and I saw their bass player. I listened to the record and there's definitely moments where he's just duplicating, like just doubling the guitar straight up and it sounds awesome. But a lot of those crazy shred riffs, a lot of it is again, just like root notes and then just playing some of the riff, which serves the song 1,000 times better.
Yeah.
So much better.
Yeah. Just like catch the parts that you can that sound good back to the root notes. Like, yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And the cooler thing is if you can play the root and then play a unison line and then have some way for that unison line to lead back into a root note or like, play into the next chord, then you sound really smart. Yeah,
then it might be like, it might be in harmony with the guitars or it might, move
in
parallel or in contrary motion.
You know.
I know. I've written enough bass parts that... Yeah. Well, I came across the same thing because I started recording bass for myself. And I was like, I can't, like some of these parts are physically like almost impossible for me to play on bass. I can do it on guitar, but not on bass. It's like, okay, well, let's come up with a way to kind of, simplify here and there where it makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. So I was wondering, back to the Umansky bass, what is the sampling process like for that? It seems like that would be really time intensive and detailed.
So I can't talk. I legally can't go into like too much detail about it. They have like but I will say it took, I don't know if it took 100 hours, but it definitely took around 100 hours to do everything.
That sounds about right.
And yeah, it's very much like they built a layout for me and they gave me everything I needed to do. The only annoying part was that, well, it was all annoying. I hated it, just joking. But the only stressful part was that all the guys are in Australia. So we would do like 8 hours of work. They would wake up and then tell us we had to redo around, 2 hours of work. And like, yeah, that was kind of rough. But again, it's so cool. It's just so cool to see people like you and like anybody else that I see using the plugin in such a cool, unique way. My whole thing was like, oh man, it would be really cool to get animals using this. And then there was this one night where, I don't know. I think I was talking to Tosin just about how the bass on CAFO is literally just a pitch down guitar going through like a bass amp.
Yeah.
And, when their front of house guy played it for me, I was like, whoa. Cause it was rough, but it sounds amazing. It
works
that's
in
the case
context, but
yeah, exactly. That's the thing with a lot of bass tracks. Like they sound like garbage on their own, but in the mix, they sound brilliant. But it sounded rough. And, their front of house guy was, was very adamant on, hey, can you do this? And I was very much like, I would love to. So on our first, we had like, I woke up early one morning and I just I glued myself to the bench in our bus and I was just like no one was on the bus. So I just like laid out, just doing this for 3 hours and I programmed all the bass to CAFO by ear. And, just cause I was like so excited, like, oh, I hope they could use it. And then, they used it and, I watched them during sound check and there was this one section where, there's this one section where it's like super riffy and like, I knew that it would hit, like one of them would make a face when that section hit. And I was watching them play. And as soon as that section came in, I just saw Toast and like, it was so sick. So like shit like that makes the whole 100 hours that it took completely worth it. But yeah, it was, I don't know if, I don't know if I'll ever do anything like that again.
Recording real bass for Animals as Leaders Live? Or was it always
for sure? Yeah.
Or is it just easier to program it?
Oh yeah, I would absolutely do that for sure. But just, there was like 2 weeks left on the tour and it would take me 2 weeks to do, to get it to sound the way I wanted it to sound. Whereas this was like, hey, and especially cause there were certain things where, like when I did, what was the song? I did Ectogenesis. Do you know that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that one section, that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I did it, and then they played during soundcheck and Garsko was like, this race rhythm's not right. And I like, my heart like sunk to my chest. I'm like, oh, fuck. And then I went to their green room after and I was like, hey dude, what do I need to fix? And he's like, oh yeah, this is a dotted 30-second. And I'm like, oh my God, okay, cool. Okay. And then I like,
he would know of all people, but
oh no, he's a psycho. But so I fixed that. And again, that's why it's like easier. Cause if I had taken the time to actually physically learn it, I would have caught that. But it was just like, okay, cool. I could just go in,
change it real quick,
drag this over a half a whatever, and then it'll be fine. But yeah, I would love to track bass for them. I did Tosin's Neural DSP plugin, the track for that.
Oh, okay.
When that came out. So yeah, I definitely would like to, if they ever need bass, be cool. But they got Robo me for now.
Yeah. It's fun. That's a really fun idea of you programming something, but it's you at the same time. It's like,
oh yeah. It's so weird. And it was so funny because when we first started, when we were doing this and we were tracking it, I was like, I don't actually know how to use this kind of stuff. I'm like, why would I ever program bass? Or use articulations or force keys. I had no idea. So I spent weeks just, programming the most complex stuff I could. Like I programmed some interval stuff. I fully programmed this track I did with Josh De La Victoria and Joseph Andajar, just for fun. And then I ended up using it in a tutorial video, which was good.
Nice.
But yeah, I just to get it under my fingers, just because I have, I have people being like, hey, how do I do this? And if it's my plugin and I say, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't, not really the best look, but it's really cool. And it's definitely, if I'm on tour, which I was, and Sam Jacobs, who's in my other band, sent me a riff and I wanted to send him something back, and I'm just stuck on the bus. I can just be like, okay, cool. Here's how I would sound over that. And then easy.
Technology it's so useful for modern.
Yeah, they got to make a better one for guitar though.
They do. The best one I've found is one called Shreddage.
There's actually some MIDI guitar that made it onto my record.
Oh, really?
That's on Shreddage. Yeah, just layers and stuff. Nice. But yeah.
Actually, I've been I have my whole next full album written, and I've been doing full virtual mock-ups of every song.
That's sick.
An interesting way, because it kind of keeps me from having to learn the stuff right away, and I can send it out to other musicians or whatever. And it actually sounds pretty good. It sounds far superior to just like MIDI sounds.
Yeah, just throw like one of the neural plugins on there and you're good.
Yeah, good to go. Have Umansky Bass on it, get good drums with like all the processing already pre-done. And it's like
it's so funny, dude. It's like literally just they're just full on bands of just MIDI intro. Yeah, because it's like someone will send me like I'll get tagged in something where it's like shreddage with I don't know what's a good example. It's like shreddage with Archetype Gojira, Umansky Bass, and then Mixwave Luke Holland. So it's like it's like the dude from Gojira, me, and Luke Holland just playing whatever this crazy musician wrote. Yeah. That's the shit. I love getting tagged in that because it's so funny.
It's funny. I will say though, and I think I'll probably make a video on this because I think it'd be interesting having a version of my song with the actual you on it versus virtual you.
So yeah,
I will say that I'd probably say that the plugin gets like 90% of the way there.
Yeah,
but that extra 10%,
I can tell you what the 10% is. I can tell you exactly what the 10% is too.
Yeah, what is it?
So it's just the position that that everything is played in.
Yeah,
like that. Like for the example, that intro riff, that like that's you. The way you programmed that, it's all open A and like second fret of the G string to get the octave.
Yeah.
Right. Where I would play it,
you would play
it would be like it would be on the E, like fifth fret of the E and then the octave. So it's a bit more warmer and it's just the position makes more sense. So that's where I can tell things are like Umansky Bass, or I could tell like a guitar player did it.
Well, you can force the specific strings on the plugin.
Hey, oh no, you can.
Which but that's even more time to do. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. So that's just one thing I see a lot of like people who hire me who are using Umansky Bass on their demos. It's just very much like they're not utilizing the force keys or the position knob. It's mainly just like, hey, it's just the riff is the riff. And that's like the biggest thing I see, because everyone's really good with like the thumping and everything else, but actually like playing it in a realistic position on the instrument, that's where I could be like, okay, cool, that's not a bass player.
I definitely didn't do a lot of like too much of the velocity thing either. You could do a lot more there.
Yeah, dude, if you're hiring a real bass player, you don't really need to.
I still think though, even if I'd done all that there is a difference,
Oh, I would hope so, or else I would just never have a job.
And maybe if I'd done more of that, I could have gotten it to 95% or whatever. But
I mean, don't, dude. Just hire me again.
That's the thing, yeah. But the thing is, there's something about having the real musician. Like once you throw it in, once I threw it into the mix, I was like, yes, this just sounds like it's not like infinitely better, but it's better. It's enough better that it's important for me to have that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just certain things that a real musician would catch. And. Yeah, like on my record, I programmed all the drums, and then I had Nathan do almost too much to a T of what I programmed, and he absolutely crushed it. But just all those little things that I would never have thought of, and it was just there's nothing beats getting an actual musician.
Yeah. I've gotten more detail in programming drums because unfortunately I have to release stuff with programmed drums a lot of times because I just don't have the resources to
That's all
pay
good,
for
man.
a drummer to do. So I've gotten more detailed on that end of like the drums being like, okay, you gotta like, these velocities are really specific ghost notes and like, all that kind of stuff. But with bass, I'm always just kind of like throw it in there because either I'm going to record it myself or I'm going to hire someone else to do it. But
yeah. If you want to see someone who's just, Joseph Andijar?
Oh yeah.
He is probably one of the most deadly drum programmers I've ever seen.
If you super specific,
yeah, it's unnerving. Like it's just like, dude, what the hell? Their last song that they released, the one that I played on, is called Traveler.
Yeah, actually, I think I did listen to that. There's some really cool stuff in that song.
Yeah, it's all programmed, and I was like, oh, is Garska playing on this? He goes, no, I programmed it.
Nice.
And,
that's high praise there.
Yeah.
Well, people make. I'm not saying I'm the best drum programmer out there, but people make a lot of mistakes. The worst one is just like max velocitying everything on the drums, especially with like really
just 127.
Yeah, especially with really fast stuff. People do it on bass too. I've heard that. It just sounds so unrealistic, especially like blast beats or something. It's like drumers can't like hit full speed, full volume at like 200 beats per minute. Like that's not something that's possible.
No,
but you have to at least understand how the instrument works in order to kind of make it sound somewhat realistic.
Like, do you play drums?
A little bit, yeah. Enough that I know. Same. And I've listened to enough good drummers and watched enough instructional material that I kind of understand what drummers do. Not that I write fills like drummers would write, but as far as like a groove goes, it'd be like, they're going to accent these certain notes. This is what they physically can do on the instrument. The other one I see a lot of times is people will program, 4 drums happening at once or something like that.
2 cymbal hits and a snare.
Yeah. It's like, he can't do that unless he's using his third leg for that or whatever. But but it's kind of what I never thought, when I was learning guitar and stuff, that at some point I'd have to figure out the velocities of snare drum hits,
I started doing that stuff in high school. Like I started programming drums just because like the drummer who I was working with, like, actually no, one of my drummers was sick, and then one of them, just wasn't happening. So I just got used to just programming ideas so I could just kind of just like put out like, hey, this is kind of what I'm going for. Can you do this? But yeah, just having like even if it's a small understanding of the instrument, like actually how to play it. Because I've been playing drums kind of a little bit since I was like 13. Same thing with guitar, like being able to relay something on another instrument to your bandmate. It's having that skill is super useful.
Yeah, very
not
useful.
Just kind of like hoping they get it.
Yeah, if you want to do composing of any kind, you have to know at least the basics of how the instruments are played, whatever you're writing for. It doesn't mean that you have to be able to physically do it very well, but it's like, if I have some friends that are video game composers, which is really cool, but it's like if you're composing for full orchestras, like you have to know the range of each instrument, you have to know how the articulations sound, you got to know what's physically possible for each instrument to do, and it's a lot of work to figure that stuff out, but you get a much better product in the end if you do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. The guys that hit me up for this video game or for this TV show, they were like, hey, we're using Umansky Bass for the score, but the streaming service gave us a bigger budget, or like whatever company gave them a bigger budget, and they're like, hey, so we thought we would just hire you for the score. And I was like, oh.
That's super fun. I've played on a couple of video games here or there, and like it's maybe the most fun I've ever had doing like recording stuff. Oh, dude, because it's so it's so fun, and it's like sometimes it doesn't take that long. No, and it's different. It's like a different kind of a thing than.
Yeah, my keyboard player in my other project writes for commercials, and sometimes they get picked up, sometimes they don't. But he'll send me. I've done stuff for Amazon and like Nintendo. There's like one other one too. But it's so fun. It's just so fun to see like, something that isn't written just to be a song. It's just to be like, it's structured to make this product look cool.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
Or in the case of video games, it's because it's like nothing's linear, within the game itself. So it's like record a little snippet of something here, and I'll like piece what you sent me together into something complete, and it's like, all right.
Yeah.
So why, saying that you play guitar, why did you end up playing bass over guitar?
So when I got a guitar, I was like 7, and I really liked Elvis, and I really liked Kiss.
Okay.
I was a huge Kiss fan. And my dad got me an acoustic guitar, and after like a month of just whatever, having it and taking some lessons, I discovered that Gene Simmons, because I didn't know what a bass was, and I just assumed that Gene Simmons played guitar. And then someone told me Gene Simmons played bass, and I told my dad to get me a bass. And he's like, no. So after he said, if you play guitar for a year, I'll buy you a bass. So after like 6 months of playing guitar and, you know, following up with it, he was like, I kind of wore him down. He got me a bass. And yeah, I just started working on, you know, learning stuff like Green Day and like all this, you know, kind of basic stuff. And I just found that, I don't know, I just gravitated towards the bass more, and just like filling the song out the way the bass did, you know, it did more for me than whatever the guitar was doing. And yeah, and it just kind of, you know, for every 10 guitar players, there's like 2 bass players, and out of those 2 bass players, like one of them is going to be good.
Yeah. It's definitely probably easier to stand out in this style of music, especially. It's a bass player.
I mean, yeah. It's definitely, yeah. And when I was younger, I was, you know, learning the metal stuff. I started getting really into like Avenged Sevenfold when things that were like really like, that was like the techiest thing I'd discovered.
Yeah.
And then from there, I discovered Dream Theater, which I was into for a little bit. And then from there, I got into Between the Buried and Me, which really, I think I was like 14 or 15. And that is when things really kind of opened up, because you know, again, it wasn't just the bass doubling the guitar like everything else I'd seen. It was the bass doing these weaving in and out of the riff, and like the bass at some point being the main focal point of the song. And that's when I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is an instrument that I love, but now this is like you can do so much more with this.
Yeah.
And then, you know, got into like Jocko and Victor Wooten. And then, you know, when I was, just started learning all like the party tricks, like all the thumping and slapping stuff. And then, you know, when I got into intervals, I kind of just, or a little before that, but, you know, I just kind of started making all these things my own, and trying to come up with my own sound, which was, you know, tricky, especially when everyone's, you know, kind of using the same gear. And, you know, because there's, you know, this formula now that works, which is like the Dingwall and Dark Glass. So yeah, for a while I was just using that basic, there's like this pickup configuration with the Dingwall, which is the 2 rear pickups in series, which is like the sound, the Nolly sound, if you will, right? That's what like everyone's using.
Yeah.
And I found that like it worked because I used it for a couple of years. But with the slap stuff and like fingerstyle, it was just like too nasally, and it didn't lend itself as the way I wanted it to for the slap articulations. And then I found this old Dingwall voodoo bass in my friend's dad's music shop, and he was friends with Sheldon Dingwall too, but he had this voodoo bass that was like older than me. And the voodoo is this bass that was like the predecessor to this guy. So it came out. So that one came out first, and I played that, and it had this like modern J bass sound, and it was just like, cause it was using the neck pickup and the bridge, and that was like what I was going for. So the next NAMM, I talked to them and I was like, hey, what do I have to do to get a bass like that? And, you know, I'd been using their basses for a while, so they were just like, hey, just email us and we'll sort it out. And then, so it took me a second to kind of figure out my sound, but the modern, I think I like the pickup configuration because it kind of sets, it sets me apart from a lot of the other like sound, like the typical metal sounds. And 2, it just, this particular configuration, in my opinion, just lends itself better to fingerstyle and slapping and thumping and stuff like that. And you can kind of hear it. That's the one thing I hate, is when everyone's like, oh, another Dingwall and Dark Glass. It's like, no, they sound completely different. You're not.
You can make them sound different, you know?
Yeah. It's like people are just, they see it and they're like, oh no, this is just another metal this is just another Dingwall video. And it bums me out when I see people commenting on like other people's videos like, oh, Dingwall Dark Glass, blah, 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 boring. It's like, dude, no, this dude sounds sick and you're just an ass.
Does this person sound good? Is that's all that matters? I mean, how many guitar players, famous guitar players have played Strats? It's like... Right. That dude, right? Or it's like someone will be like, oh, everyone these days in metal is using a Dingwall and Dark Glass. It's like, well... Are you going to give all the Motown players for shit for playing P basses with flats? No, because that's what sounds best. You just have to ignore people on the internet for the most part. Oh, for sure. Because if Steve Ray Vaughan was alive today, people on the internet would be like, "Oh, look at him! He's just using the same stuff that Eric Clapton used, or whatever." You know what I mean? Exactly. I think just people. I don't know, and especially in like the progressive metal genre, they're so like snobby, and they can be just so. It's but it's I just don't like seeing that, and like when someone just posts a video using a Dingwall and a Dark Glass and it sounds incredible, and they're just like, oh, there's another Dingwall Dark Glass video. It's like, dude, well, like they sound amazing, and there's a reason why everyone's using them. But yeah, I definitely had that like Flea or not Flea, but do you know Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine? Well, I mean, obviously, no Rage Against the Machine. Yeah, so their bass player, he used a Music Man, and everyone kept comparing him to Flea. Yeah, because that's what Flea was using, and they were both doing that like hard rock funk kind of thing. Yeah. So he switched over to Fender just because whatever, and then Flea switched to Fender, then he switched back to Music Man. Yeah. So when I first started playing Dingwall, I definitely tried to avoid that like feeling of like, oh, I'm using the same thing as this other guy in metal. And more so just try to hone in on, because I didn't want to change my instrument because there's nothing better for me than like a Dingwall. Like you're the best playing bass is best sounding. So rather than just like getting discouraged, I kind of just honed in on what I liked and tried to find, I use different messed around with different pickups, different pickup configurations, different woods. So that's kind of how I landed on where I'm at today. Yeah. And this is basically like we're developing a SIG, and it's basically just going to be based off of all the woods and pickups in that guy. Gear in this realm of, bedroom guitarists and musicians, gear is such a big thing. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you don't know how to use it, it's just a tool. It doesn't really matter, Exactly. It's like you could make amazing music on a $200 guitar if you know what you're doing. It's like, yeah, dude, listen to Loathe. I mean, gear is great. Gear is super helpful, and having nice gear is good. It helps make things easier, but it doesn't make up for not being a good musician or not having your own sound. 100%. And like what you're doing, you're playing with your fingers too. I mean, that's already different than a ton of for sure. Like, there was no question that what I was doing was different. It was like just when I first started playing that Black NG, and like when I was still fairly new to the intervals and the whole scene, and I was just putting out just putting out my videos. I was just very much like, I don't really read like. I like to read comments when they're, constructive and stuff. And sometimes you stumble upon one. And when I was, starting out, I was very much like, oh my God, dude, like people just won't let this go about the, just the Dingwall and Dark Glass thing. But it's cool, man. Like, it doesn't really faze me at all. But yeah, it was very much like when I first started out, I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to put this aside and just do my own thing. And then now we're here. Yeah, you just gotta, if you believe in what you're doing and how you sound, it's like just go for it, do what you do, and people can like it if they want, if not, whatever. Yeah, exactly. Just try to be yourself. It's especially being a guitar player, it's probably even harder because there's like a billion guitar players. There's way more of you guys. Yeah, and I don't like, I'm a little bit older than most people are on Instagram and stuff. Like, I'm not a big fan of that kind of Instagram guitar scene. I don't know. No, there's people who do it. There's people who do it well. And then there's people who are very cringe and inauthentic. Like, I think there's some guitar players that I'll shout out that I think are really amazing that they definitely do more like,
video stuff than actual playing live, but the way they approach their content, I like that. Like Connor Kaminsky, you know him from the UK. He's great. Like Charlie Robbins, also like, so like, and I don't like calling them Instagram guitar players, but that's, the only reason I'm calling them. That's the only reason I'm calling that is because that's how I discovered them. Yeah. But there's people who do that kind of stuff really well. The content is really cool, and they're the stuff they're writing is genuine. They're not just like writing stuff to put out content, Yeah. So I there's definitely some good guys and some.
Yeah, I think maybe that's one of my biggest problems is there's been a lot of people that will write music specifically for Instagram, Yeah. Maybe like, I'm going to write something that's 30 seconds long. Like, it's different if you're just sharing a riff that you wrote or whatever. Yeah. Or sharing part of a song. That's usually what I'll do. But, like, I don't know. It's like when I started writing that song that you played on, like, I originally was intending it just to be like a short demo, but it eventually turned into a whole song because I just much prefer to have an entire song that actually goes somewhere,
Yeah, absolutely.
But with Instagram, people are scrolling or TikTok or whatever, and they're like, it's like instant gratification, right? They want like 30 seconds of the coolest thing you can do, and it's
it's so that's rough. That can be rough. But
being a social media, like having to promote yourself on social media it's great because you can get yourself out there to a lot of people, but it's also
you're also putting yourself out there to a lot of people.
But it's also it's so oversaturated, and it can be super demoralizing because you're spend 20 hours on something and you get like 200 views or whatever.
Dude. Yeah. I'm really like, I post quite a bit, but I like that, a lot of my work is just, it's a lot. I mean, a lot of my clients, they find me on my website or they find me on like my Instagram or from intervals, which is cool. But I'm just glad that like I'm not really super I'm not really crazy reliant on like the social media stuff to like, to like make a living. I have my students, I do my session work, and granted, all that stems from the Instagram stuff, but I don't really have to like do too much of that to kind of keep things going. Which
you don't
is
feel
good,
like you have to post every single day,
No, literally, I posted like 2 seconds before we started this talk, but
it's fine.
But no, it's a lot of my stuff is just either just stuff that I'm working on or just playthroughs that I'll put out. But yeah, nothing is really too. I'll do these like riff challenges because I think those are fun, but it's not like where I'll just write a riff and then I'll do like a contest of who can play it the best or whatever. Yeah. But again, it's nothing too I don't know, hopefully not too cringe or anything like that. But like doing the Instagram stuff is fine, and like I work with Scott's bass lessons on some stuff, so that's really cool too. But it's all, again, like all these, like if it's an internet thing, it's got to be authentic and cool for me to want to do it.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. All right, well, thank you so much for coming in and chatting with me today.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. This is super sick. And if you got any other tunes,
what I got more stuff coming up. We'll see. If people want to find you, where's the best place to do that?
My website is JacobUmansky.com, and my Instagram is just at JacobUmansky. And my project that's coming out next year is called Gia, and you can find us on Instagram is at WeAreGia, JIA. Okay.
Very cool. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, dude. All right, man. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, you
Talk
too.
soon, all right?
All right, bye.
Peace.